The birthday song that stopped the tennis world. Something happened recently that brought the tennis world to a complete standstill. Not a match-winning ace down the line. Not a grand slam upset. Not a controversial line call that sent social media into meltdown. Something far simpler, and somehow far more powerful than any of those things. A birthday song. That's it. A birthday song, sung by thousands of people in perfect, thunderous unison, directed at one young woman standing in the middle of it all, visibly trembling. Her eyes wide, her smile cracking open like she was trying to hold back something enormous. That young woman was Alex Eala. And if you haven't seen the video yet, understand this before we go any further. Nobody planned it. No choreography. No official coordination. No group text to the crowd. It just happened, organically, spontaneously, the way the most powerful moments in sport always do. Standing right beside her, caught inside that tidal wave of noise and love, were three of the most electrifying young players on the WTA tour right now. A German, a Turk, and an American. All of them clapping, all of them smiling, all of them swept up in something none of them had been expecting either. I've been watching tennis for a long time. I've seen Wimbledon silences shattered by a single brilliant shot. I've seen players collapse to their knees after winning Grand Slams. I've witnessed breathtaking individual moments that defy description. But I cannot remember the last time a video from outside an actual match, from the grounds, from the fringes of the event, captured the soul of this sport so completely and so effortlessly. This video didn't go viral because an algorithm pushed it. It went viral because it was real. And real is the rarest thing in professional sport. Who Alex Eala actually is, so let's take our time with this. Born in the Philippines. Trained in Spain. Competing against the entire world. On paper, that sentence sounds clean and straightforward. In reality, the story behind it is anything but. Think about what it truly means to leave your home country as a teenager. To board a plane to Mallorca with a tennis bag and a dream. To walk into the Rafa Nadal Academy knowing the standards there are ruthless, the margins razor thin, and the only currency that matters is the work you put in when nobody is watching. No shortcuts. No sentimentality. Just the relentless, grinding, daily commitment to being better than you were yesterday. She didn't just survive that environment. She thrived in it. Her junior career alone would mark her as a generational talent. Grand Slam titles in singles and doubles before most players her age had even begun thinking about the professional tour. But what truly separates Eala from other prodigies isn't the titles. It's the way she carries herself. There is a composure to her that feels earned rather than performed. She doesn't play to the crowd in manufactured ways. She doesn't project an image. She simply competes, quietly, relentlessly, and lets the results do the talking. And yet, despite all that quiet intensity, when those thousands of fans began singing to her, she didn't pull her guard back up. She let herself feel it. Fully. Completely. You could see it happening in real time. The armor came off. And underneath it was just a young woman, far from home, overwhelmed by the sudden, enormous realization that all of that sacrifice, all those early mornings and lonely evenings in a foreign country, had somehow led to this. To a moment of pure, collective love from thousands of strangers who didn't feel like strangers at all. Why the Filipino faithful show up like no one else to understand why the Filipino fan base mobilizes the way it does. You first have to understand the relationship between the Philippines and its sporting heroes. This is a nation that has always turned athletes into mythology. Manny Pacquiao wasn't just a boxer. He was a symbol, living, breathing proof of what was possible when everything was stacked against you. That same energy, that same depth of national investment, is now flowing toward tennis. Toward Eala. The Filipino diaspora is one of the most geographically dispersed communities on the planet. Wherever there is a city, there are Filipinos. And wherever there is a Filipino community, there is a support network that mobilizes with a speed and intensity genuinely unlike anything else in world sport. When Eala plays, they don't just attend. They transform venues. They bring color and volume, and an almost sacred level of devotion that makes every court feel less like a neutral tennis ground and more like a hometown stadium. The flags, the chanting, the collective held breath before every crucial point. What those thousands of fans did when they sang that birthday song wasn't merely a warm gesture. It was a declaration. We are here. We belong in this sport. And this woman is ours. It was a reclaiming of space in a sport that, for most of its history, has looked and sounded very different from the crowd that showed up that day. The weight she carries, and with that level of devotion comes responsibility. A weight that never fully leaves her shoulders. Every forehand she strikes carries the hopes of millions who see her not just as a tennis player, but as proof of something. Proof that it's possible. That you don't have to be from a traditional tennis nation. That you don't have to grow up on clay courts in Europe or hard courts in America. That if you are gifted and driven enough, the world will find you, regardless of where you started. That pressure could crush someone. Instead, it seems to fuel her. The three players who shared that frame now, let's talk about the three players who stood beside her, because their presence in this video is not incidental. It is deeply significant. Start with Eva Liss, representing Germany. The kind of player tennis purists quietly love, aggressive from the baseline, fearless on the big points, technically sharp in a way that signals a long and decorated career ahead. There is a German precision to her game that draws admiration even from opponents. And there she was, clapping alongside Eala, genuinely caught up in the moment. No performance, no self-awareness, just joy. Then there's the Turkish player, representing a country whose tennis presence on the world stage is still emerging, still finding its voice. Her being there matters because it signals something. The sport is expanding. New nations are knocking on the door. New faces are refusing to be kept outside. Three players, three countries, three different tennis journeys. All of them united for one unscripted, unplanned, utterly real moment. What this video is actually telling us, because here's what matters most, and it's worth saying clearly. This video is a signal. A loud, clear, unmistakable signal about what women's tennis is becoming. The center of gravity is shifting. The sport that for decades has been defined by a handful of dominant nations, a handful of familiar faces, a handful of recognizable stories, is opening up. Cracking open, actually, in the most beautiful and irreversible of ways. New nations are arriving. New voices are filling the stands. New faces are appearing on the posters. And at the front of that wave, trembling with emotion, smiling like she can barely contain it, stands a 20-year-old from Manila who boarded a plane to Mallorca 8 years ago with nothing but talent, discipline, and an unshakable refusal to believe that this world was not built for someone like her. It was. It is. And she's proving it beyond the competitor. Watch Eva Liss in that video, laughing, clapping, fully present in a moment that wasn't about her. And you see something that transcends the competitor. You see someone who genuinely understands that the sport is bigger than any single rivalry, that celebrating someone else's joy costs you nothing and reveals everything about your character. That is a rare quality in elite sport. And it matters more than most people realize. Zeynep Sönmez and the kindred spirit, then there is Zeynep Sönmez from Turkey. And if you haven't been watching her trajectory closely, now is the time to start. She is doing something genuinely historic. Turkish tennis has never had a player operating at this level with this much momentum. The road to get here demanded something extraordinary, fighting through qualifiers, grinding through the lower tiers, winning matches when nobody was watching, building a career point by point in a sport where the path from promise to professional is littered with players who had the talent, but not the resolve. Sönmez has the resolve. When she stood in that crowd beside Eala, she wasn't simply a bystander. She was a kindred spirit, another young woman from outside the traditional tennis map, writing her country's name into the sports story for the very first time. The connection between them, even unspoken, even buried inside a birthday chorus, says something profound about what this generation of players shares beneath the competition. Iva Jovic and the weight of expectation, and then there is Iva Jovic. American tennis carries a long and storied tradition of producing players who arrive on tour and immediately announce themselves as something different. Jovic carries that weight of expectation, and she carries it remarkably lightly for someone her age. Being young on the professional tour is not easy. The schedule is punishing. The travel is relentless. The emotional demands are staggering. And yet, watching her in that video, relaxed, genuinely happy, not performing for a camera, you sense a player who has found her footing in an environment that swallows many young players whole. Dismantling the old narrative, what Eala, Liss, Sonmez, and Jovic are quietly doing together is dismantling an entire narrative about women's tennis. For decades, the media built the story of this sport almost entirely around rivalry. The cold locker rooms, the icy handshakes at the net, the carefully managed tension between players cast as perpetual enemies. Some of it was real. Much of it was manufactured. Either way, it created a perception that the tour was a hostile, isolating place, where the price of competition was loneliness. This generation is erasing that. They have grown up in a world where connection is constant and where performing toughness for its own sake carries no value. They compete fiercely. They want to beat each other badly. But they also eat in the same player lounges, sit through the same rain delays, navigate the same impossible travel schedules, and share a lived experience that nobody outside that world can truly understand. The camaraderie you saw in that video is not a PR performance. It is the natural result of 4 young women who respect each other's struggle and who understand that a rising tide really does lift all boats. When Eala's popularity grows, when her story brings new audiences to the sport, when broadcasters and brands start paying attention to women's tennis in markets they previously ignored, every player on tour benefits. Bigger audiences mean bigger prize money, bigger crowds, bigger broadcast deals. They know this, and it shows. A support system in plain sight. There is also something worth saying about the mental health dimension of what we witnessed. In recent years, professional tennis has started having a far more honest conversation about the psychological cost of life on tour. Anxiety, depression, burnout, the crushing weight of performing under relentless scrutiny. Several high-profile players have spoken openly about it, and the sport is better for their courage. What you saw in that viral video is a support system for young women who, despite competing against each other for rankings and prize money and titles, choose to show up for each other as human beings. That is not a small thing. That is not incidental. That is the culture of a sport quietly healing itself. Why it spread the way it did now? Let's talk about the video itself, because there is an important lesson embedded in how it traveled. This footage wasn't produced by a broadcast team. No camera cranes. No slow-motion replays. No dramatic musical overlays. It was shot on phones by fans from multiple angles, uploaded raw and unfiltered across TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And it spread because it was the most genuine thing anyone had seen in a long time. We live in a sports media landscape that is aggressively polished. Everything packaged, branded, filtered through layers of communication strategy. Athletes trained to say the right things in press conferences. Moments curated for maximum engagement. And audiences can feel it. They feel the artificiality. They are exhausted by it. So when something genuinely real breaks through, when you watch a young woman's face in the exact moment she realizes that thousands of people love her, it cuts through everything. It doesn't matter if you follow tennis. It doesn't matter if you know who Alex Eala is. You watch that video and you feel something. That feeling is what viral truly means. Who has never picked up a tennis racket in their life? What the sport must learn from this for tournament organizers, sponsors, and the WTA itself. This video should be required viewing, because it answers a question the sport has quietly struggled with for years. How do you grow tennis's audience? How do you make it relevant to younger, more diverse demographics who didn't grow up watching it? You do it exactly like this. You let the personalities breathe. You let the fans be loud and passionate and seen. You tell the stories behind the scoreboards. You stop treating tennis like a museum piece and start honoring it as the living, breathing, emotionally rich sport that it actually is. More than a player, Alexandra Eala is not simply a tennis player with a strong ranking. She is a story. She is a daughter who left everything familiar to chase something enormous. She is a nation's hope made flesh and sinew on a tennis court. She is proof that the world is bigger and more varied and more interesting than the tennis establishment has always assumed. And she is, apparently, a woman who can make thousands of strangers feel like family, simply by existing in the same space as them. The road ahead will not be easy. Viral moments create new pressures as quickly as they create new opportunities. The audience that found her through that birthday video will now follow her results, feel her losses, scrutinize her form during difficult patches. The expectations, already enormous in the Philippines, are now genuinely global. But if her journey to this point tells us anything at all, it is this. She knows exactly where she is. She knows exactly what she is building. And she knows exactly what it costs. She has been preparing for a big stage her entire life. This is just the stage getting bigger. Where we land, a birthday song started this conversation. But what it opened is so much larger. It is a conversation about belonging, about sacrifice, about the slow, powerful cultural shift happening inside one of the world's oldest and most prestigious sports, about a generation of athletes redefining what it means to compete, about a fan base that refused to be invisible, about a young woman from the Philippines who walked into a crowd expecting just another day on tour and walked out carrying something she will probably never fully be able to put into words. Sport gives us many things: drama and tension, heartbreak and triumph, glory and devastation. But every so often, if you are paying attention at exactly the right moment, it gives you something rarer than all of those things combined. It gives you a moment that is purely, undeniably, beautifully human. That was this. That was Alexandra Eala's birthday. And I think we were all extraordinarily lucky to witness it. Philippines.